The farmhouse was started and built in 1880, probably finished 1882. The man who built the house was Ben Dudley. His father was referred to as the old Captain Dudley because he had served in the Civil War. The family moved here from the Charleston, South Carolina area in the 1850s. I hope you noticed as we walked up the pathway in the front yard, the beautiful flowers on either side of the entryway, and there are lots of antique rose bushes out there that Mrs. Dudley brought with her when the family moved here from Charleston. We're just finishing up the blooming season of most of the bulbs, and there are just a few camellias still in bloom, but if you come back in April and the spring months and early summer, the front yard is just a riot of color. Everywhere you'll just see beautiful stuff to look at. The house itself, as I told you, was built in 1880. It's referred to as a Georgian house because it has a wide central hall with 4 rooms on either side. Some people refer to this as a dog trot, meaning that the house was designed to provide natural air conditioning. It's got a lot of cross ventilation with windows on either side and the open way at the front and the back. The front room on the right as you come in is referred to as the parlor. We like to tell people that this is the room that the family might gather in after they'd finished their chores in the evening. They probably didn't have as much free time as we do today because it was work, work, work. Myrtle was the youngest of the 12 children, and she donated this farmstead to the state park system in 1983, and then she maintained life rights to the farmhouse until her death in 1996. The park system was very fortunate to have such a wonderful house donated. It's been restored to the time that the family first moved in, the 1800s to the 1900s. The parlor has a fireplace that backs up to a fireplace in the room next to it. That's the parents' room. These are the only 2 rooms that had any sort of heat. So on cold winter nights, they probably went to bed pretty early just to get under those nice warm quilts that they wanted to do. As you look around, not only this room, but the hallway, you'll see handmade furniture that's got cowhide seats. We like to remind people that the Dudleys, as well as all the other families of that period of time, never wasted anything. They saved anything. So after they had butchered their beef, they would tan the cowhides and make those tan cowhides into chair bottoms or stool bottoms. You'll see rocking chairs. You'll see just straight back chairs. The furniture in the house belonged to the Dudley family. There are 2 things that do not belong to the Dudley family. Is this little phonograph type of instrument, and that was donated by the Park Service. And then in the guest room, or the older girls' bedroom, there's a sewing machine that was donated. It's not a Dudley sewing machine, but it's a sewing machine from that time period. One of the things that's interesting to me is they had lots of photographs, and as you tour the house, you get to see lots of photographs from the family. One of the things I've read says the mantels were always covered with photographs, and I think that's one thing that people still do today, is they want to display their family members so that visitors or the younger children and families can see their ancestors. Across the hall from this room is the guest room, and if you look above the doorway there, you will see that it's much fancier. So if you look at the top, you can see a pediment that indicates that this room is very special. A way of showing that when you had guests, you wanted your guests to have the best that you had to offer. So be sure you take a close look above the doorway to see. Inside the room, you see 2 double beds. You see dressers, and you'll see the lamps like we see throughout the house. There's a rocking chair or 2 in there. There's a sewing machine that did not belong to the Dudleys. It was donated to show that during that period of time, people had to make most of their clothes. Also, you'll see the quilting frame. The quilting frame is unique in that it goes up or down. If you're wanting to quilt, you lower it. If you don't want to quilt, you raise it up. One of the other things that I frequently point out to visitors is there's a light fixture not only in that room but other rooms. But electricity did not come through here till the late 1930s or early 1940s, so that those light fixtures would not have been there, especially in that room, because that's a question that people ask sometimes. Why is the light fixture there if they're going to raise it higher up? Well, it wouldn't have been there in the 1880s, 1900s. So that was just a working room for the ladies. The older girls would sometimes sleep in that room. I imagine them sleeping in that room in the summertime when it gets miserably hot upstairs since heat rises. There's also a quilting frame over there. Mrs. Dudley wanted each of her girls to make 12 quilts. This was because when you got married, you needed to have a way of keeping your family warm at night. So each of the 8 girls had to do 12 quilts, which was a total of 96 quilts. So I'm sure they had lots of quilting bees and quilting parties with not only the Dudley girls, with people in the neighborhood. It was a social event for girls to go to quilting bees. In the hallway, there's a poem that Myrtle wrote. I think you'll want to be sure that you read that before you move out of the house. The room directly behind this is the parents' bedroom. There are 3 beds in that room. There's a big 4-poster bed that the Dudleys brought with them when they moved here from South Carolina. The story goes in some of the archival documents that we have that they brought that bed to Florida in a covered wagon. There's a smaller bed, and there's also a baby crib. When you have 12 children in a family, there would be, most of the time, an infant or 2. When you're looking in the bedrooms, you'll notice there's not much closet space. The master bedroom does have a large area where they've got shelving, and this is where a lot of the bedding and clothing and toweling would have been stored. We're used to having closets. They did not have the number of clothes that we have today. So the closet in that bedroom and in the boys' room are both pretty small, not what we're accustomed to. There's some beautiful blue or teal color aquamarine pictures in the parents' room. You'll see more of this kind of lighting system, since we didn't have electricity here until the late 1930s or early 1940s. You'll see slop jars in the bedrooms. That's always something interesting to tell them. The kids especially who come through. The adults usually know what it was used for. You'll also see a water pitcher with a big bowl, so that they would, use that to wash up in the morning or just before they went to bed at night. The boys' room has 2 double beds. There were 4 boys, so that meant that 2 boys got to sleep together. That room has been remodeled. When the park system redid this house, when they did the restoration work on the house, they left the pine paneling that had been put up in there. They also left the linoleum on the floor. That's probably from the 40s or the early 50s. It sort of indicates to the public that as time goes on, we evolve and make what we have better when we have money to afford the newest thing in the way of fashions or the newest thing in the way of restoration materials. And this shows the ingenuity of the Dudley family, that they wanted to keep up with what was new in building materials. At the end of the hallway on the right is an area that's still the bare wood. It was not painted, and the story that we've heard is that that was a place where either a refrigerator or upright freezer was kept for the Dudley family to show that this again was something that they did. One of the things I like to show people when I'm giving tours is on the wall next to the boys' room going in on the right-hand side, there's a big trunk, and above that trunk there's usually a jacket or a couple of hats that are hanging there. I like to remove those and show them what kind of hooks are there. It's a branch from a tree. The front porch would have probably been considered more of a family social area, especially on hot summer days or hot summer evenings, a place where people could gather to talk. The back porch is what we usually refer to more as a working porch. The bathtub is usually there during the summer months because that's where they would take their bath. There's also a number of benches and a number of rocking chairs. I always like to remind people that when you have 12 children in your family, there's usually a baby or two that wants to be rocked. That's how, you know, they're comforted and how they know that they're really loved. I find it interesting that there were 2 wash areas on the back porch. There was always a bucket and a dipper and a wash bowl on the right-hand side of the back porch, and that was where the girls and the ladies washed up. And on the left-hand side is where the men and the boys washed up. I'm not quite sure why they wanted to have separate wash-up areas, but apparently that was pretty important to them. Also on the back porch, you will see a pie safe. A pie safe is a piece of furniture that was used to store leftover food, especially cakes and pies and cookies. You wanted to keep it away from insects. And it usually would sit in a can or small cans of water to keep the ants from crawling up. There's also an ice cream churn back there. And that's an interesting thing to show the children because a lot of children have never seen that. They only think of ice cream as coming from the supermarket or an ice cream shop.